Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Amanda Jarvis, and I'm with the Virginia Small Business Development Center Network. For those of you that are not familiar with our organization, the Virginia SBDC is a partnership program between the U.S. Small Business Administration, George Mason University, and local host institutions throughout Virginia. With 27 locations across the Commonwealth, we provide training and technical assistance to small businesses in their local communities. Our one-on-one consulting services are available at no charge. Today's boot camp, Managing Your WordPress Website, is presented by the Virginia SBDC Network. Please be sure to check out our next digital boot camp next year, Success Through E-commerce, on January 11th. We are recording today's presentation and it will be posted on our website, virginiasbdc.org. Due to the large number of participants today, everyone's microphone is muted, but if you have questions during the presentation, you can type those into the Q&A box. We have also enabled a live transcript function, which you can show or hide via your meeting controls. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our presenter for today's session. Cameron Nelson is the Chief Digital Advisor for Virginia SBDC and Central Virginia SBDC. Mr. Nelson has over 18 years of experience in technology and as a senior tech consultant in Silicon Valley, helping Fortune 500 companies improve their digital marketing and e-commerce. At the same time, he founded several tech companies, including a software as service website for tree preservation and a blockchain platform for nonprofits. Cameron is accomplished in language culture and has an MBA and MA and believes new technology products have the ability to help shape our world for the better. Please join me in welcoming our presenter for today, Cameron Nelson.
Thanks for the introduction. And hello, everybody. Welcome to How to Manage Your WordPress Website. I'm Cameron Nelson, and I'm glad you're joining us today. We're going to cover WordPress websites at kind of a high level in this presentation, and that's just to make sure everybody has the same basic understanding of WordPress websites and the ins and the outs of managing them. If you have questions that are specific and pertain more to your website, I'm happy to try to answer those. We'll have 15 or 20 minutes of time at the end of this presentation for your questions. And also, if there's some questions that you'd prefer to talk to me one-on-one about, then my email address will be provided. And I'm happy to meet with anybody on a one-on-one basis to talk about your website and how to increase your online sales. So let's jump right into it. So we have three goals for the presentation today. First, we're going to discover what WordPress is and also learn if you should be using it. Secondly, we're going to talk about how to set up your WordPress website, and you're going to do this by selecting a theme and customizing it. And the third part is we're going to talk about that customization process in a lot of detail and tell you some of the common mistakes to avoid and the tips and tricks that I've learned to help you be successful. So first off, what is WordPress and should you be using it? WordPress is not the only platform available to you, so I want to make sure that it's understood that this is a good platform for many, but it's not the only platform. So websites are becoming a really critical part of businesses, especially during the pandemic when more and more shopping is turning online. And WordPress is a great tool for creating your business website because it makes that creation process and the updating process quite easy. And again, it is a tool. Also, sometimes it's referred to a platform, a WordPress platform. So that's the same thing when we refer to WordPress. It's a platform for building websites on. And not everybody knows, but WordPress started 15 or so years ago as a way to create blogs. And it's evolved a lot since then with lots of new features added, keeping up with the changing pace of the internet. And now it's one of the most widely used and what I think robust platforms for building a website on. But it is not as simple as drag and drop. There will be a learning curve if you're not familiar with WordPress to learn about the interface. And I'm going to show you more of that in a moment. But you know, if you're an advanced user or you already used WordPress before, this is something that you're going to be very familiar with. And almost everybody can learn it, but you do need a plan on learning the interface if you're not familiar with WordPress. So some of the biggest benefits of using WordPress that I see are that WordPress is widely supported. It doesn't matter if your customer is accessing a website on their Android phone or iPhone or their Mac computer or desktop computer PC. It's going to work on all different platforms, and it's always being updated. If the browser gets updated, then WordPress will be updated to work with it. So you're always covered on any platform. The next point is that multiple users can contribute to your website. Now, this is a great tool if you have other employees or friends and family working on your website with you or updating it. You can give them their own logins, and that's free, and that's always included in WordPress. Next, you can choose your own web host, and some of the biggest ones are Google and GoDaddy. So the host is the computer or the server somewhere in the world that your website files reside on, and when somebody goes to your website online, the host serves up those files to them. Google and GoDaddy are two of the biggest and also two of the best, I think. Their prices are very competitive. So you have the selection of any host you would like using WordPress. WordPress plugins are one of the best parts about it because they can add any kind of functionality and enhancement that you can really imagine. There's tens of thousands of plugins that are submitted to the kind of plugin store from professional developers. Many are free, some are charge a small fee. But if you want to add something like a e-commerce module or a video widget or anything else, you can find a plugin to add that to your default theme that I'll explain more in a moment. WordPress is also built with search engine optimization in mind, also called SEO. What this means is that when Google and Bing and any search engine, when somebody types in a search term, then they're looking at websites that have things properly set up for search engine optimization, words in the right places and code in the right places. So when those search engines do update their algorithms, WordPress knows about that, and they also update their platform to make sure they're compliant with search engine optimization. So that's already built into WordPress. Next, WordPress offers many customizable themes, which can get you a great head start on building a website. Many themes are free. There's a few that you can buy and pay for. And if you buy it, it's usually between $20 and $70, one-time fee. And finally, most web hosts will offer a one-click install of WordPress. WordPress being a platform is something that you usually have to select to install on your hosting plan, but it's usually very simple. So as I mentioned before, WordPress websites require a bit of learning, and I think that between 2 and 5 hours a month is going to be necessary for anybody who wants to, after they've built it, to maintain it. And this is going to mean installing updates to your plugins or to WordPress. You have to install those manually. You might find bugs, or you might find performance issues, like maybe you have a very large image that's loading very slowly. These things will crop up from time to time. You will need to spend some time each month addressing them. In addition, if you want to update major content, that will take longer. So just keep in mind, be realistic with your time. It's not for everybody. Not every business owner wants to spend 5 hours a month minimum maintaining a website, but that's really what it takes for WordPress. If you don't have this time, you might have funds to hire a professional website developer who can help you with WordPress and do almost all this for you. And if you don't want to go that route, then there's two options that you should consider. Simpler website building platforms like Squarespace or Wix. They don't give you many themes to choose from. They don't give you the plugins, and they don't give you great search engine optimization, but they're usually can be free, and they're more simple to build a website on. So something to look into if you feel like after this presentation, WordPress is not for you. So the first thing that you're going to do once you want to set up a website with WordPress is find your theme. There's many places to find WordPress themes. If you just Google WordPress themes, you'll find dozens of websites that will offer them. So the first one you can easily find is the official WordPress website. This has some basic themes. They're not too flashy. They can be functional for some businesses, but most businesses I work with will prefer to have something with more features. So I have two other websites here that I recommend that you'll go look at. The next one is ThemeForest, and ThemeForest has a great selection. There's thousands of professionally made WordPress themes. Many are free, some you can buy. And another site to look at is called ColorLib, and ColorLib also offers a great selection of themes from international developers. This whole presentation will be emailed to you after, so you don't need to worry about writing down these links, but you will get them in the email. So the next thing I want to talk about is the difference between WordPress.org and WordPress.com. I get asked this a lot, and there's quite a bit of confusion. So let me explain the differences. WordPress.org offers full theme support. So any of the themes you find on any website for WordPress will work on your website. Whereas on WordPress.com, they lock it down to just a few themes. On WordPress.org, you can have access to all the plugins in the plugin store. You know, like I said, there's many of them, and that's one of the best features of WordPress. Over on WordPress.com, no plugins are allowed. On WordPress.org, you pay the hosting fees to a Google or GoDaddy. These are usually around $6 a month. On WordPress.com, they'll give you free website hosting if you use less than 3 gigabytes of storage. On WordPress.org, it gives you full e-commerce freedom. So this is very important if you're selling a product on your website. You need the ability to take credit card payments and sell that product through e-commerce. On WordPress.com, there's no e-commerce allowed. WordPress.org gives you complete freedom when you want to brand your website. So changing little details, you know, swapping out colors or fonts, you can do anything you want. And on WordPress.com, they're going to brand it like the site is built on WordPress.com. You have to pay extra to remove their branding. On WordPress.org, you get all the search engine optimization features, and you can get very advanced and customized. Whereas on WordPress.com, they give you some basic and limited SEO control. WordPress.org offers full analytics, which I think is very important for businesses looking at their data, their website visitors, their bounce rate, things like that. You can use any analytic tool you want with WordPress.org, but at WordPress.com, they give you a small, limited suite of analytics only. And WordPress.org, you do all the maintenance, like I said, updating your plugins, maybe resolving minor bugs that you find. On WordPress.com, they're going to update all the plugins and basically do all the maintenance for you. So you might be wondering, which one do you want to use? Well, I think for most people in this presentation and almost all the businesses I speak with, WordPress.org is the way to go because you get the ability to sell with e-commerce, you get the full theme support, you get all the plugins, you pay hosting fees, and you do have to do the maintenance. So WordPress.com might make more sense in a few cases, but overall, I definitely recommend WordPress.org. So let's just assume that you're getting set up with a WordPress.org website. This will be the dashboard that you see when you log in. And so once let's just say you're starting from scratch, you'll buy a domain name, you'll go to Google or GoDaddy or some other host, you'll pay for their hosting. They will give you a username and password, and once you put that in, boom, this is what you'll be looking at. So I want to walk through this because this is very important to understand. If you're setting up a WordPress website and maintaining it, you will spend a lot of time looking at this screen because this is where you interact with your website from an administrative point of view. So over on the left is your default toolbar. There's several different items listed here. You might have more items depending on your theme. So some themes will actually insert additional options here, which is fine. I'm going to go through the most important points here in the menu because I think it's important that everybody understand these. And then if your theme has additional menu items, then again, you might have to learn and explore those on your own. So the first one is media, where you manage all of your images, pages, where you can edit and create new pages, appearance, where you can change many appearance variables of the website, plugins, where you can search for, install, and manage those plugins, users to create new user login accounts, and settings for some general overall settings for the website. So these sections all need to be properly set up before your website will be ready to be launched and viewed. So let's talk about them in a little bit more detail. The first one here is images and the media section. So the media is where you will go to add new images to your website. By default, if you have started with a theme, and almost everybody here will, then you're going to have a bunch of default images in your media library. That's fine. You can upload your own and then replace them one by one. You can leave the old ones, you can delete the old ones, it's up to you. So this is where you will add all the images that will be displayed on your website. Page management is a place you'll spend a lot of time in. This is where you will go to edit the content on different pages. You can see here that there are multiple pages on this website. The home page is also called the index page. It's the most critical page a website needs to have. If you accidentally delete this page, then your website will no longer load. So all the other pages are optional, but the home page here needs to be here. So you cannot delete it. No, don't delete it. And so you can easily edit a page by clicking the edit button, like you can see under home. And depending on your theme, there might be other options like to edit with a fancy editor. So I'll show you what I mean with that in a moment, but just remember this is where you will edit pages, and then up at the top, there's a button for add new page, which will allow you to create a brand new blank page. And you can also, if you would like to duplicate a page, if you want two of the same, and then you can change the new one from there. So this is the place you will manage your pages. This next section is the theme management. So this is where you will go to see which themes are installed. On this example website, looks like there's 3. There's a big button that says add a new theme. So if you click that button, you will be directed to the WordPress theme selection. And like I mentioned, it's fine there. There's some nice looking themes, but they're kind of basic and bare bones. I'll also show you how to install any theme that you found from one of those other websites that I mentioned that might be a better fit for your website. The next section is the plugin management. This is where you'll go to see which plugins are installed. You can see here that several of these plugins are active. They're kind of highlighted in blue there. A couple that are not highlighted in blue are installed but not activated. So you might have a plugin and you might be setting it up before you activate it for whatever reason. And so you can activate or deactivate a plugin from here. Activated plugin will obviously be working on the website, and a deactivated plugin will just not be active, even though you can still have it installed for testing purposes and configuration purposes. So sometimes plugins will have an update, and the reason for this is because companies like Google change the Chrome browser, Microsoft changes the Edge browser, and Apple changes the Safari browser. So as these browsers are always getting updated, the plugins are updated by their developers, so they'll be compatible. So it's always a good idea to update those plugins when you see an update available to ensure that it's going to be the most compatible version. If you don't update plugins for too long, you might just find that they start behaving erratically or just stop working altogether, which is the worst case scenario. So that's why you should always update plugins when you see that as an option. Next is the user management section. So on this website, there's only one user, and that's going to be pretty common. You might only have one user, which will be the one you create with your host. You can add new users just by clicking the button to add new at the top, and this is free. You can have, I think, up to 100 users. Again, these are people who you would like to edit your web page, to update content on a certain page or pages. You can give them any access you would like and limit their access accordingly. So this is where you'll go to add those new users. And lastly, this is the general settings. So as we already talked about, there's some settings you can change under the appearance tab, but these general settings are the more foundational settings for your WordPress website. They underlie everything, including whatever theme settings are built on top of them. So it's a good thing to check these and make sure that they look correct. So make sure that all the settings here on the general page are correct, like the time zone and any other settings. Normally, once you set these, and they might already be set properly for you by default, then you're good. You don't need to come back in here very much, but do make sure that everything is proper here before you go to launch your website. So that ends the formal presentation part of this bootcamp. Next, I'm going to hop over to a live website experience because I want to show you what these options look like in real time. So give me one moment while I swap over to that. Okay, so now everybody should see my screen now. This is a website that I worked on with a client who is a music producer. And this is what I'm going to show you what editing this website looks like in WordPress. So here again is the dashboard, similar to what we were just looking at. You might notice that there's a lot more items here on the left. I even have to scroll down to get to them all. So these have been added because the theme that the client is using, this theme here, they added a few plugins that were added into the website to give it additional functionality. Those plugins also added items here on the left. So yes, this might look a little bit more complicated, and yours might look a bit more complicated too once you're all done setting it up. But let's go ahead and start with the media section. So you'll spend quite a bit of time in media as you're building your website. Media is this place where you're going to be able to upload and swap out your images. And inevitably, what you're going to get is a bunch of default images like these ones at the bottom. And these just came with a theme. And then as this website's been customized and finished, the images have been added to the top and then just swapped out. So one option here is you can just leave all the default images. That's totally fine. It doesn't really matter. You could also delete them if you like to clean things up. If you want to add a new image, it's very easy. You just click the button that says Add New. You can drop your file here. Keep in mind that there's a maximum file size. I've seen this range from 15 megabytes to 100 megabytes, and that depends a little bit on the host. So your host, which is Google or GoDaddy or somebody else, can specify this. If you find that you have an image that's actually too large to upload, you'll need to compress it, and you can do that by Googling image compression online. And there's many free websites that will just compress that image down for you. But overall, I don't think anybody's going to need to upload an image over 100 megabytes or even 15 megabytes. That is a very, very large image to display on the website in the first place. So that should not be an issue. So that's where you go to manage all of the media. Next, let's look at the pages. So this website has more pages than the presentation website, but it still has the home page, this one right here. And like I said, the home page is the critical one. So whatever you do, don't delete it, and you would delete it by clicking trash, which would put it in the trash can. That would instantly make the website disappear, essentially. So you wouldn't want to do that. The rest of these pages are optional. Many of them are added by the theme to give you different layouts. Like this one is an events grid layout, an events list layout. You might decide to use some of these pages, you might decide not to. It's completely up to you. So let me show you how you edit a page here. So I have the edit button, which is the default WordPress way to edit things, as is Quick Edit. They kind of get you to different editing interfaces, but the one that I want to talk about is Edit with Elementor. So Elementor is the one of the technology options that this WordPress theme was built on. There's 15 or 20 that I've seen, and so you might have a different button here. It might say Edit with Pro or Edit with something else. This one just happens to be Elementor. So if you have this additional edit option on the right, this is the visual editor for your theme probably, and that's what I recommend you use. So we're going to click on that. And here we have loaded up the editing interface, which is the Elementor interface. So yours might look a little different than this. They all kind of have some variations, but essentially what you're going to be able to do here is now edit the page. This will allow you to import sections like text images and videos, most of which has already been done. But let's say you want to change something. For example, I just clicked on this paragraph here, the About Me paragraph. And now I have the option to just change and edit that. And once I wouldn't make any changes, I click the update button at the bottom, and that would now be live on the internet. So it's the same if I want to swap out an image. I can swap out an image by clicking on it. I just clicked on this one. I can click on Choose Image. I can click on Media Library, and then I can select any image that I've uploaded to my media library, click the Insert Media button. I won't do that because this is a live website, but let's just pretend I changed it, and then I'll click Update at the bottom. Again, it's important that you remember you have to click usually an Update or Save button. Every editing interface will have a button to save these changes, so make sure you do that. And then once you do, you can just go over to the live website, which is here, and refresh it, and you'll see those changes, as will everybody else on the internet. So That's it. It's pretty simple to edit pages. Keep in mind that it's much easier to edit a block of text that's already here and an image that's already here based on the theme, rather than trying to put in a bunch of images and text on your own and customize it heavily. Customizing the layout is possible, but almost inevitably you're going to find that things maybe don't line up right, or they look a little bit off. And that's where a lot of people get stuck and get frustrated. So my recommendation is, if this is your first time building a WordPress website, just stick to the parameters you have. Keep it easy on yourself. Don't try to put in a lot of extra things, because that will take a lot of time. Just try to think about your messaging and your branding and simplify it down to the constraints of the theme you selected. And it's also important to think about the theme that you are selecting. If you have videos that you want displayed on your homepage, make sure you pick a theme that has a nice video in the header section or in the body of the homepage somewhere. I wouldn't plan on adding that, because again, it can work very nicely, but more often than not, it will come with some caveats, and you'll end up running into a few brick walls as you try to add too much stuff in addition to what the theme gave you. So the next section I want to talk about is down here under the Appearance tab. So we're going to click on Appearance. So these are the themes that are installed on this WordPress hosting plan. Now we have this one here, which says it is active. You can see how it says active here. And the name of this theme just happens to be Sonar. Don't worry about the child, but Sonar is the name of this theme. It was built for musicians, so it made sense for this client. You can see here there's some other themes. These are some of the default themes that WordPress gave, and they're not very good for this client, so I wouldn't worry about those. If you go and you find a theme on a website like ThemeForest, and you say, hey, this is the one I really want to use, you'll either download it for free or buy it and then download it. And then you'll have a zip file. And then you just click on the Add New button here up at the top. And you're going to click on Upload Theme. You're just going to choose that file, and it says right here, it has to be in a zip format. Just going to choose the zip file, upload it, and click Install. And it's as easy as that. It will then show up here on your list, and you'll probably need to hover over it, click Activate. And so that's the first step, or that's the next step in customizing your website, is you'll find your theme, upload it like I just showed, activate it. Once you do that, you can go to your Pages section back here, and you can click that Edit button right here. So again, this is going to be very simple for anybody who's done WordPress websites before, but I want to make sure that everybody has these basics understood. And next is the plugin section. So just below Appearance is Plugins. So we can see here on this website, these ones that are highlighted in blue are activated. You can tell because they say deactivate is the option. The one up above here is not activated currently, so I can activate it by clicking the button, but I won't do that right now. There's quite a few updates available. You can tell because there's this big yellow banner. It's usually a good idea to update every time you get that option. Sometimes updating can cause issues, and it's not common, and it's actually more common to have issues if you just neglect to update things. So if you see a warning or something like this one has a warning which says we recommend you back up your website before you update this plugin. So, and because this is the plugin for Elementor, which is a very important plugin because it's what manages the editing of all the pages, you're probably going to want to follow the instructions to back it up before you update that. But it's always a good idea about once a month to go in and make sure you try to update any plugins that have that option. If you want to add new plugins, you just go to the top of the page, you click Add New, and then you're going to search for a plugin that you're interested in. So let's say e-commerce is a plugin. This is a very common type of plugin you're going to want to add, so we'll search for e-commerce. So here we have the results, which are 1,036 plugins for e-commerce. So you might think, well, that's a lot. Which one do I want to use? If you have a recommendation from a friend or a developer and says, look, this is a good e-commerce plugin, you should install that, then I think a recommendation is a good step to take that. But if you don't have that, I would look at the plugin that has the most number of reviews and the highest overall review score. So in this case, WooCommerce is the highest rated e-commerce plugin. I already know that because I use that on a lot of websites. But if you're searching for any kind of plugin and you just don't know which one is the right one for you, then I would start with the highest reviewed. You can also click on more details next to any plugin. And here they'll give you usually some bullet points, which will help you decide if this is the right plugin for you. If it is, you can just click this big blue button that says install now. Some plugins are they charge you to use, but most are free. WooCommerce, for example, takes a small percentage of your e-commerce transactions. I think it's 1.5% or so, and they make their revenue that way. So, but many plugins are actually completely free. The next section we're going to talk about is users. So on this website, we have the business owner with his own login, and we also have my login for when I'm helping him work on this website. So this is a good scenario because if I make a change, it's all tracked in logs. And let's just say somebody deletes the homepage, and you want to know who did that. So if you have different employees or people working on the website, it's always a good idea to create these different logins for them. It's free, and you can have a lot, like 100 different users working on this. To add a new user, you just click on the Add New button up at the top. Fill in at least the required information, which is not much, username and email. You give them a role. So an administrator obviously can even install plugins and everything, all the way down to a contributor who can update some content, or an author who can create new content. So different levels of roles. And if you even want to lock down their access to different pages, you can do that as well. The next section is settings. The settings are more of the foundational settings that run underneath your website. So they're more foundational than any settings that you will have under the editing your templates here under the appearance tab. So just make sure that these are right, and you only really need to check this once, and then you'll be good to go. So you don't need to spend a lot of time here looking at the settings. One other section that is sometimes quite useful is under tools. And you can go to site health. So this is an automatic checkup of your site health. You can actually find external companies and external products that will check your website health and give you recommendations. This is the built-in one for WordPress. It's fine, In this case, it did find one critical issue, which if I click on the downward arrow, we'll see that there is some complicated coding stuff that not even I really am understanding what this is. I'm not a website developer per se, but if you run into things like this, then it's a good time to probably talk to a website developer, a coder, who will be able to maybe resolve these things. A lot of recommendations will probably be easily resolved by yourself. This one says you should update your PHP. So that's just something anybody can do. So you can find out about your site health here by going to Tools and Site Health. So that ends the formal part of this. I'd like to open it up for your questions now, and we'll have about 15 or 20 minutes to dive into your questions. So feel free to pepper me with them. And then also, if you'd like to meet with me one-on-one at any time to talk about your website in more detail, my email address will be sent out to everybody following this meeting. So if you've got to go, thank you for your participation. I hope you have a great day.
Thank you, Cameron. I have a few questions here, and I will get started on that. WordPress goes with Yeast SEO. Is Yeast SEO good for SEO tools? Is it among the best SEO software? Have you heard of it?
Yeast, is it spelled Y-E-A-S-T?
Yes.
Okay, I have not heard of that one. There's many SEO products out there. I mean, there's one called Yoast, which is why I asked, Y-O-S-T. That's a very popular one. like I said, WordPress gives you basic SEO built in because it is always updating its platform to be compliant with the latest search engine algorithm changes. If you want to get more complicated with SEO, then I mean, if we search, we can search for the WordPress plugin store for SEO. This will actually be an interesting experiment here. So let's just see where, let's go to add new and search for SEO. Because I do want to show people how to find it. So Yoast. So yeah, Yoast is the one I've heard of. I don't know about Yeast, but Yoast SEO, and this is one that's very popular, and you can tell by the number of reviews here and that high rating. So if you're curious about what this plugin will do, you know, it can do things like automating technical SEO improvements. There's probably a lot of research that you'll want to do as far as what do all these terms mean. Yoast even has a premium level that you can pay for. So, you know, for most business owners, having the basic level of SEO built into WordPress is fine, because normally they don't have a lot of time to spend on fine-tuning their search engine optimization. But if that is something you want to pursue, then I think Yoast SEO is a very good option. I don't see anything called Yeast even showing up. So yeah, but you can do some research and decide which SEO plugin you'd like to use. But again, it's not, SEO is already decent with WordPress without installing any plugins.
Great, thank you. Do you know, does WordPress come with any free stock photos and images outside of the one of the theme you choose?
The answer is no, it doesn't. WordPress in and of itself doesn't have like a big database of stock photos. The theme will have their own default photos, but you're always going to want to swap those out because they won't pertain to your business. So if you just Google free stock photos, you will find many sites that offer thousands, tens of thousands of nice photos that you can use royalty free. I believe any photo you find on Wikipedia is available to use because there's this license agreement in place there. So there's a lot of places to find free stock photos, but WordPress doesn't give you those by default.
Okay, I think you might have answered this in the presentation, but if you could remind us again, which e-commerce do you recommend for WordPress?
So the one I recommend, and I'll search for it again here, because this is one of the most commonly installed plugins, is an e-commerce plugin. It's this one here, WooCommerce. WooCommerce is nice because it allows people to ship, you know, list and ship anything. It'll take credit card payments, link it to your bank account. It will send you invoices and reports, and it's fairly inexpensive. And like I said, they charge you a percentage of the sales fee. It's pretty small. I'm not sure if they have it here on this page, but you can find out when you go to install it. So WooCommerce, and it's also quite easy to set up and configure. You know, you'll put in the item name, the price, the description, the weight, the shipping dimensions. You can even put in the shipping options you want to show up, like is it USPS, FedEx, UPS, you know, different options. That's all displayed then on your website now through this plugin, and it makes that process very simple for the user to just buy it.
Cool. So can you create the page in WordPress.org for free and host it elsewhere? And number two, to host it elsewhere, you still have to buy a domain name, correct?
Yes, you basically, yeah, this scenario for the business, for I think everybody here in the meeting, is you're going to buy your own domain name. If you have a business online, or if you have a brick and mortar business that you want to have an online component, you need that domain name. That gives you legitimacy online. It gives you that presence, right? So let's just say you buy yourbusiness.com. What you're going to do is you're going to buy that with a domain registrar company like Google or GoDaddy. You can buy your domain through them. They'll also love to sell you a hosting plan. They'll give you that as an option. So let's just say you buy your domain with GoDaddy. You'll pay $10 a year or $15 a year. Then GoDaddy is going to say, hey, do you want hosting with that? We have WordPress hosting for $6.99 a month. You'll click OK, add that. You will then have your WordPress environment set up on GoDaddy as your host, and it will be linked to your domain name that you bought. And then all you need to do is go find your theme, install the theme like I showed, and start customizing it. So the first part of the question was, can you build your web page in WordPress.org and then move it? You don't need to, because like I said, if you buy your domain, set up hosting, find your theme, and then build on your theme, the theme is already linked to the domain you bought. GoDaddy knows that, so there is no need to move it. But let's just say, for fun, you decide you want to move your website to a whole nother domain name, then you will need to move those files. It's possible, but it's not super easy. You'll have to kind of export everything and then import that into a new host. It's possible to do. You might need to hire a website developer for a few hours of work to do that for you, but it is possible.
So this person is saying, my WordPress does not show plugin on the left side as an option. How do I get this to appear?
That's interesting. I have never heard of plugins not being an option. So one thing that I would think of is, like I said, in WordPress.com, they don't allow plugins. That's just a restriction. They kind of give free websites for a lot of businesses, but they don't allow you to do plugins. So I guess make sure that you're not, for some reason, on WordPress.com, because if you were, plugins wouldn't be an option. But assuming you're just using a regular WordPress.org installation and using a host like GoDaddy or Google, it should be there. And if it's not there, then you probably need to contact their technical support, because I don't think there's any way from an administrative point of view, once you've logged in, to add something there. So it might be a setting that they have, or it might be a bug that they need to resolve.
Great. For keywords, is it better to use blog posts or new pages to promote the keywords? I think talking about SEO.
Yeah, that's a great point. So here's the thing when it comes to SEO, you want the words on your web pages to reflect the search terms that people will be using to find your products or your services, right? It doesn't matter if those words are appearing on your home page or a products page or a blogs page. It doesn't matter to the search engines what page it's on. It only matters essentially that the words are there. So let's take, for example, you have a nail salon. You might have your home page. You might have a page for your services, the different types of services you offer. But then you might have a blog that you update once a week, and that blog might be talking about tips and tricks and trends. I don't know what you want, but you can have a lot more content on the blog, and it can be constantly being updated with new blog posts. So that gives you more and more options for someone searching for a search term to find your website, because you just have more volume of words. So that's why people will use a blog. It's not because a blog has a better SEO ranking than any other page, but it's because they don't want to change their page talking about their products every week, because they're not changing their products that often, right? But they do want to be uploading new pages and new words and uploading that stuff to the website. So that's why you'll use a blog, is to have those frequent updates to the site.
Great. Why would you choose to use a plugin rather than a widget to enable you to do something particular on your site?
Yeah, so that's a good question. Widgets and plugins. A widget is just something that the theme it'll usually come with a theme. So if you find a theme, maybe it's a theme for a bakery, that bakery theme might say, we have some widgets, which are kind of like optional things that you can install with the theme or leave out. So those come with the theme. Now plugins can add functionality like e-commerce or a video or a contact form to any theme out there. So widgets will come with a theme, and they're optional. And plugins can be overlaid on top of essentially any theme.
So on that note, what plugins are essential to have when building and launching a website?
It's a good question. There are no essential plugins. It all depends on what your business is and what your online strategy is. And so what I recommend is instead of looking at all the plugins that are available and looking at the, if you can see my screen here, they even have a popular section of plugins. You got to wonder popular for who and for what scenario. It doesn't necessarily make any difference for your business. So rather than browsing plugins and saying, oh, this looks good, I should install this, think about what business requirement you need to meet on your website. All right, do you need a contact form? Do you need a way for them to buy tickets to an event, e-commerce plugin? Decide what feature you need that you don't have. Then find the plugin that has that feature, right? So that's the way you should go about thinking about this. Installing any plugin is going to take some time. And if it doesn't solve a specific business purpose on your website, it's not worth your time to pursue.
Great. Is developing the site in WordPress free when you host it elsewhere? The key part is the development in WordPress.org free.
Yes, WordPress.org is always free. The only thing you pay for is the hosting plan, which is usually around $5 or $6 a month is the cheapest. And then that once a year domain purchase fee, which is around $10 or $15. WordPress.org is completely and always free. It's just the technology platform.
Great, thank you. What plugin or widget do you recommend for an entity website that would like to make meeting minutes available to users?
That's a good question. I've never had that come up before, but I can see the use case. So it sounds like you would have meeting minutes and that you want those to be available to maybe website visitors. Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. The answer is I don't know what plugin's best for that. I've never had to set that up before or had that come up, but I would, if you have a WordPress website already, then you can just search in the store, maybe meeting minutes or maybe a note, maybe note taking, note distributing plugin, something like that, and start there and look at the highest rated one. If you'd like more kind of one-on-one advice about that, you can contact me and maybe we can look at your website together and I can dive into that a bit deeper for you.
Great, thanks. I also have I've had several questions about the live transcript and how to get a copy of it for the recording. So I did start recording the transcript. I am not sure if it's going to be linked with the video or not, but I will now, since several people are requesting it, I'll make sure that we also send that out this time around. And yeah, I will let our team know that we will send it out. We're going to send out the slides, the recording, and the transcript to everybody. So, and I have another question. Let's see here. How do we ensure that our plugins are updated? Is there a button or maybe a way to check that regularly?
Yes. So on my screen here, I'll click on the plugin section. And there's currently, I'm just going to scroll down here. Well, any of the plugins with this yellow banner and the little red circles, there's a button that says update now. So all of these plugins have updates. This website has a lot of plugins that have updates. If I count them, looks like there's like 5, 7, or 8. So out of 13 plugins, half have updates. And that's pretty common. A lot of plugins will get an update every month or every 2 months because the internet's evolving at such a rapid pace. Code is always changing in the browsers and the operating systems. These plugins should be having regular updates to make sure that they're compatible with security, with compatibility, with all the other changes. So just click on plugins, and whenever you see that yellow banner, click the update now button. It'll take a few seconds and it'll essentially be done. So that's how you do it. And I recommend you check at least once a month for that.
Great. Is it a good idea to add marketing interns as users to our WordPress websites?
It can be. If you want them to be contributing to, let's just say you want them to be writing a blog post once a week, right? Definitely create them their own username. You can give them access of an author or an editor, and that will allow them to not, change your e-commerce settings and mess anything up inadvertently, but they can only edit, blog pages. So yeah, I think it depends on what you want them to be doing. But in general, I think if you should have one as the owner of the business, you should always have one that's the administrative, and never forget that password and username, because it's a real pain to have to get that back if you've forgotten it. And then create these other accounts for your interns and other staff. Absolutely.
All right. I have a couple more specific questions. My original website was set up with the blog as the homepage. When I switched to a regular homepage, should I just rename the original homepage to blog? I just don't want to lose the last 3 years of blog posts.
Okay, yeah, I understand. So some ways WordPress can be set up is that the homepage is the blog. So as you make new blog posts, they appear on the homepage. But if I understand, you want to transition away from that to just a static homepage. That's probably more common nowadays. So the way that you would want to do that is, I think there's a couple different ways. If you go to your pages section and you click add new page, you can create a new page, which is essentially a blank page. And here you can see these are some of my options. I can pick various background types and other settings and put in my titles and stuff like that. So that would be creating a new page. That could be your home page, right? And once it is done, then you would essentially go to your home page and let's see if I can remember. Oops. Well, I'm not seeing the place to edit it right now, but you can change the name of the file for the page. So instead of having it be home or index.htm or HTML, once your new homepage is done, you could just rename the blog homepage to something like blogs.html. And then once that was no longer home, you could rename this new page that you just set up, rename it to home or index. And then that will become the index page. So that would be a simple way to kind of launch the new one without deleting the old one. And then you could keep the old one there. So that approach should work. It depends a little bit about the theme you're using. And so, hopefully it's that simple, but if it got more complicated, it's something that I could potentially help you more on. Or if it got to the point where you needed to hire a developer for a couple of hours of work to help rename these pages, then that's something that could be done and done fairly inexpensively. So I know it's not a super simple answer to that question, but if you do have a more follow-up question, feel free to contact me about that.
Great. They said, thank you for answering. That gives me some insight on what to do.
Great.
Thank you for your question. I have one more, and this is kind of circling back to the discussion about WordPress.org. This person saying, we already have a host, so we can develop a site at WordPress.org and just use our own host and pay WordPress.org $0.
Yes. I would like to know who the host is you currently have, because I would say 95% of hosts out there support WordPress, and it's gonna be just like you said. It'll be free to build your site on WordPress.org on their platform. But if for some reason you're on a host that doesn't support WordPress, then you'll need to pick a different host. So if you do know your host, you want to tell me that, I might know if that's a host that supports WordPress. But that's the thing I don't know, and that's what we need to find out.
Great, that's it. So that's all the questions we have. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up. Like I mentioned before, you will all receive an email with the link to the recording, an evaluation, and to the slides. And then we'll also try to get the transcript out to everybody as well. If you would like to sign up for upcoming webinars or access recorded webinars, please visit virginiaspdc.org/training. Be sure to check out our next digital bootcamp, Success Through E-commerce, next year on January 11th. You can also access on our website the COVID Business Recovery Center, which we developed to help owners not only continue business operations, but to thrive and recover. These resources are designed to be used in collaboration with your local SBDC advisors. You can sign up for free and confidential session by emailing help@virginiaspdc.org or via our website. Thank you all so much for attending. Thank you for your questions, and we hope to see you next year.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day. Bye-bye.